Hello everyone, it's Jamarl Thomas. Welcome to the Progressive Soapbox. So, I want to talk about Star Trek. I'm active, so yeah. I want to talk about Star Trek. I don't necessarily get to do it all the time. And every so often, I get a reason to talk about Star Trek. So, there's another channel that I've been binging on. It's called Lore Reloaded. He goes into all of these science fiction tales. I think it's like Doctor Who, Star Wars. But my favorite, Star Trek. It's absolutely fascinating. The detail that he goes into, it's mind-blowing. I didn't even know the detail existed. I know people have Star Trek. I know people get detailed in regards to ships and everything else. I just didn't know they got that specific, that detail. But that being said, he did a video on Pale Moonlight. Pale Moonlight of Deep Space Nine is probably one of the best episodes in all of Star Trek. If there was one episode of Star Trek that you would want to see, Under the Pale Moonlight is that particular episode. And the reason is, in original Star Trek, Kirk, Spock, McCoy, they were idealized. You know what I mean? This is, what humanity has become. These are rational human beings. And what I mean by rational, they've gotten rid of poverty, they've gotten rid of war, they've created a society for the most part that worked for the people of that particular society, in addition to traveling space. Think about that. That sentiment by itself is mind-blowing to me. That's what I love about this particular series. Human beings supposedly evolved from apes. And in evolving from apes, one of them got to the point where he looked up at the space, into stars, and thought to themselves, are there people up there? May not look like me, but are there people up there in the first place? Or even, let's go more primitive. What's up there? What's in space? It's fucking epic. Fucking epic. We take consciousness for granted. Like, your consciousness is kind of flickers from moment to moment to moment to moment. There are breaks in the way you perceive the world, but your brain strooms those together. For the most part, your reality seems like it's a consistent whole. But we take consciousness for granted. Like, think of it from the standpoint of you're waking up, you're kind of in, you're kind of out. Your wife, your girlfriend, your spouse is talking to you. You're receiving it, you're saying yes to it, and yet in a few hours you have no idea that conversation took place. You're interacting. You're conscious to some degree. The consciousness hasn't necessarily kicked in where you're present and you're aware. Same thing in your dream states. You're in your dream state, you're kind of going along with it. Everything is baked into it, meaning you have a previous knowledge of things that took place, even though you're supposedly in that dream state for a few seconds. Or for however long you're in the dream state. But you have a history, and you have a past, and you have this kind of presence awareness of where you are and what you're doing at the time. It's fascinating. Consciousness is fascinating, man. How did this particular thing emerge? You have all of these cells that are supposed to be in a dead universe come together in some kind of brain state to create an awareness of things. Some awareness. It's amazing. But that being said, I've gone way off the rails. Under the Pale Moonlight, Sisko, Starfleet officer. The Starfleet officers were supposed to be these evolved human beings, and for the most part they were. Particularly when you got to the Next Generation, Picard, Riker, Troy, all these people were for the most part better than us. Now, part of the reason they were better than us, being able to leave into the cosmos, they were somewhat rational in the way they interacted with information. So if scientists are looking and says, oh my God, your environment is collapsing, the rational human being says, we need to do something to stop that from collapsing because we live on this planet. That's a rational human being looking at the information that's presented to that particular person. Star Trek has evolved beyond that. Mind you, they didn't evolve to that point until they were at global collapse, global environmental collapse. They had to transform their society, and they were able to get peace and everything else on Earth. So these guys are idealized human beings. In Deep Space Nine, they're in a situation of a war. So you have these idealized human beings who've now been put into the situation of trying to win a war against this force that is technologically, at the very least at the start of the war, beyond their capabilities. How do those people act in those situations? Deep Space Nine built up to this war. It took them over 6 or 7 seasons. Discovery, in season 1, enters into a war. In no way did the Federation want to get itself into this war. The Federation was trying to stay out of a war when it ended up into a war. So, I guess my point is, human beings still, these people are in a situation where they have to do or deal with extraordinary circumstances while maintaining this kind of rational human being status. What do you do when you need to win a war? What do you do? Are your values, the things that you hold dear, are those things cold comfort if you lose your life? Where do your values end? Now, I've always made this case on this channel that your environment is inextricably linked to who you are as a person. Meaning, these people are rational human beings because these people are in a society that allows them to be rational human beings. If the incentive structure of that particular society went in a way of self-interest and, greed and everything else, then you would end up with the same situation. Any system that has greed as a principle of that system completely ignores the fact that you're in an actual real reality. Creating a bubble of financial reality or fiscal reality doesn't necessarily make it real. Now, I'm saying fiscal reality because this game space that these people that we interact on, that's not real. It's not real. The environment is a real thing. If you have global catastrophic environmental collapse, that money is cold comfort. The money is cold comfort. Yeah, I keep going off the rails. But my point is, what do people like this do when they need to actually win a war? And mind you, we're not talking about, this like wars where you're losing 50 million people. We're talking about losing like 50 billion people. We're talking about multiple planets. And we're talking about losing an entire system, star system. So, what do those people do? Now, Benjamin Sisko, under the pale moonlight, needed to get the Romulans into the war. He understood that they were going to lose this war if they didn't get the Romulans into the war. They had projections showing that they were going to lose this war if they didn't get the Romulans into the war. The Romulans had no want or no need to get into the war. So the spit and polish officer, this rational human being, did what I would say is a rational thing. Now, mind-blowing when you're watching it, but did, from a standpoint of a general or standpoint of somebody trying to win a war, a rational thing. You can even make the argument a moral thing. There's a fly in here. Yeah, even a moral thing. And I know that sounds weird, but Sisko essentially goes into a scheme that ends up creating a fake data disk showing that the Jamarl was going to attack Romulus. They found out that the disk was a fake. That particular senator was going back to his particular home country or his planet. And Sisko, working with the tailor, put a bomb on the plane, blowing it up. When they checked the debris, they saw a data disk. That data disk was fake, but any imperfections in that data disk was just attributed to the bomb being on it and blowing the ship up. The Romulans, that very day, entered the war on the side of the Federation. They didn't realize that Sisko had essentially planted that disk and set that bomb. If it wasn't for Romulus getting to the war, the Federation would have lost. There were, 50 billion people or something that died in that war up to that point. And that would have gotten worse. And the Dominion would have taken over the entire territory of the Federation. We're talking about planets, not one planet, not one country. We're talking about planets. If it took that act to win the war, A, is the act moral? Meaning, if you lose this war, you're going to lose it all. You're talking about 50 billion people already. That list is going to explode in the number of lives that are going to be lost. Not to mention, you're going to have all those planets under Dominion control. How many people were on that ship that died? Maybe 500? Let's say it was 2,000. But if you've saved, billions of lives with that particular act, does it make that particular act moral? Does it make the moral thing to do? I know that sounds weird to say, setting a bomb, blowing up a ship to get this other species into the war. But again, I make this point that if that saved billions of lives, is that right? Is it right? Now, Sisko is somewhat guilt-ridden by this choice. He's a Starfleet officer, after all. This is rational human beings. This is unbridled humanism. For the most part, human beings' life in this particular part is fucking sacred. There are situations on Deep Space Nine and Next Generation where they're interacting with a hostile species, but they refuse to take the life of that species because from their standpoint, life is a precious and important thing. You're looking at this like, why didn't they kill him? Because this is our violent species that we live in. The things that they would do, you're just like, why are they doing that? But it's because they have this high degree. From their standpoint, there's this hegemonic view that life has a certain value. The ships, the crew, they espouse that value in the behavior and the things that they say and do. So it looks slightly weird to us when we're looking at that, but these are rational human beings. But this rational human being, this rational spit and polish Starfleet officer that have these high ideals and these high morals, have just did a situation where he's murdered a bunch of people on a craft and is going to get a lot of people killed from another empire. That shows. At the end of it, Sisko looks at it, he says, I think I can live with it. I think I can live with it. Mind you, the thing that spurred this behavior was looking at all these, billions of lives of people that died in this war. Yeah, it's right. I'm sorry, it's right. Like your morality, even who you are, it's almost like you need. I kind of make this point about rational human beings, and I make this point that their environment, their society allows them to be rational human beings. The incentive structure in that particular that time period, that episode of the season, in their society is not built in a way of cash. It's built in a way of this kind of resource-based economy. So you don't have this thing of you don't have a billionaire stepping over a homeless guy. You don't have anybody who's homeless. You don't have anybody who's a billionaire. It's that simple. It's that simple. Your needs are met. There's nothing that you need that you don't particularly get. There's no reason for theft. There's no reason for crime. It's not utopia. There's never such thing as utopia. Every society has their issues. But in regards from our standpoint, yeah, they have the things that they need. So you have the space to be this kind of ultimate great human being. The situation changed, however. The moment that this situation changed, their ability to be this great and awesome and spectacular human being went along with it. Who you are is not completely inextricable from where you are. Your environment makes a large part of who you are. Who you are is based on the things that are put in you by your particular society. Those things that are put in you, yes, there's a certain range to you of who you are, per se. But there's an aspect of you that's also a large aspect of you is your society. I mean, everything that you know, your language, everything that you do for the most part is in the confines of your environment. You can't get away from it. I'm making this point that, yes, these guys are spit and polish when their environment allows them to be spit and polish and allows them to be these rational, awesome human beings. The moment that the situation changes and you put these people in a situation where being rational does not have an incentive that's beneficial to them, they go in a way that's beneficial. It has nothing to do with morality. Morality plays a role in it if all things are equal. When all things are not equal, morality is going to take a hit. Morality is going to take a hit. They're just humans. They're rational in large part because the environment allows them to be rational human beings. That's my point. That's my point. It's like when you look at the Star Trek universe, the first thing that needs to be known is these people have all the things that they need. They have access to all the good and services that they need. They don't go without. They don't even understand the concept of poverty. They don't even understand why it existed in the first place. They don't get it. It makes no sense to them. It makes no sense to them. So, yes, they're going to be different because of it. Their value system is going to be different because of it. The implicit pressure that's put on people in that society is going to be different because of it. So, yes, they have the space to be rational. You take that space away, and I would imagine they would devolve back into who we are today. I don't think they're that perfect. And look, one of the one of the episodes showed these guys in a battle, the soldiers. And Quark kind of made this observation. He was like, human beings are awesome when they have their needs met, but you take away their needs, or the things that they need, and they will become as bloodthirsty as any Klingon that you can come across. Quark is right. Quark has this thing of, these guys think they're great, but their environment makes them great is a large part of that. Sisko did what Sisko had to do in order to win that war. Sisko had to do it. Now, if would Jean-Luc Picard, would Riker, would any of those guys do that in that situation? If they would never show it on camera. They would never show it. You would never see an episode like that. But Sisko did the right thing. Like, and I know that sounds harsh. That sounds real weird, but he did the right thing. The alternative was unthinkable. Let me put it that way. The alternative was essentially utter annihilation. So what am I going to do? Am I going to sacrifice who I am as a person in order to do this? And is that worth losing a war? So yeah, you're going to put your Starfleet thing to the side. You're going to say, I may have taken a vow, but fuck this vow. This is a lot to take on. I need to win this war. I don't think he had a choice. I don't think he had a choice at all. Oh, Lord Reloaded. What's happening? Riker would. Well, his duplicate would. Oh, man, I don't know if Riker would. I think Kirk would have done what Sisko did. Yes, I agree. Lorca to Picard and Riker, I couldn't see that, to be honest. They've been tricked into it. Kirk, yes. Yes, particularly the Kirk in the movies. Absolutely, yes. Picard, I can't see Picard doing it. I can't see him doing it. I don't even think I can see Janeway doing it. Janeway can be up her ass. Tuvok would do it. Tuvok would rationalize it. Tuvok would do it. Yeah, that's an interesting question. The Federation could have surrendered. That's not an option. Why is that an option? Yeah, Dax, that's not an option, dude. That's not an option. Not quitters. Captain Archer committed an act of piracy on another vessel, stealing vital components for the Enterprise's warp engines, but standing the innocent travelers 3 years away from home. Yes, I remember that. He's like, I have shit to do, man. We have shit to do. I'm sorry. We need to take this. And he's right. His planet was at stake. I mean, you can make the argument that Sisko and Archer was in the same situation. My planet is at stake. I'm sorry I have to do this. I have to do bad things to you. My planet is at stake. There's 6 billion people at stake. I don't care about the Starfleet stuff. In fact, Starfleet wasn't enacted yet. But no, he did what he had to do. Dax is a confirmed traitor. Yeah, I agree, Perseus. I agree, man. He's like, they could have surrendered. What? Fuck out of here. Get out of here. Get out of here. Janeway's not happy if she's not getting her own people killed, so the Dominion War is like paradise for her. Oh, that's wrong. That woman had to come all the way back from a different quadrant. That's so wrong. She did. Look, personally, I think Janeway did good. I've said this before, man. I like women being women. And what I mean by that is, I don't like it when women take certain stances to be harder than what they need to be. In order to try to make themselves like more dominant because of, being a man or anything else. No, be who you are. Everybody else will conform and get used to it. In this case, I like Janeway's character. Like, she had this an elegance where she could be soft when she needed to be, at the same token, a hard ass when she needed to be. It worked in both terms. There were some issues. I mean, having the Doctor singing opera and giving him a choice on whether to stay on the planet, fuck that. Any other captain would have reprogrammed his ass, and yeah, man, fuck that. Like, that's her, I guess, her soft emotional side. He is a part of the ship. You are a machine. You're a toaster. And I don't necessarily believe that the Doctor's a toaster, but for my needs being, we need a Doctor on the ship going all the way back. There is nobody on this ship that can do that job. And you're talking about you want to sing opera and get some tail from some planet. But no. B'Elanna will be reprogramming you tomorrow. You will be whistling Dixie while you're doing medical procedures. Yeah, I will be a hard ass on that front. But otherwise, I thought she was decent. All you troublemakers will be rounded up and dealt with by the founders, the Dax Jacobs. Oh, that's wrong. That's wrong. That's wrong. That's wrong. Fortunately, y'all lost that war. Fortunately, you guys lost that war. I would have mutiny on Voyager. It was man. I couldn't imagine being on any of these ships. You have people freaking out. You have all sorts of weird space anomalies. You have people being killed left and right. Yeah, I can't see being on those ships, man. That does not seem to be a healthy thing. But that being said, that may just be the Enterprise. The other ships may not necessarily experience that. I mean, Enterprise is their flagship, so be rounded up and dealt with by the founders. Dax Jacobson is the 10th host of the Dax Symbiote. Star Trek seems like a nice fantasy, but a horrible reality, in my opinion. Yeah. At least the ships and at least the alien species. I mean, yeah. Some kind of spatial anomaly. Bam, runs into a spatial anomaly. Something takes place. The ship is broken into multiple pieces. And it's like, I was just on military duty, man. They didn't even tell me this was a military ship. I thought I was just going to explore space. I didn't realize that every other week I was going to be in some kind of spatial anomaly. It would be a weird reality, man. It would be a very weird reality. I mean, you get to be on the Enterprise, cool, but then fight the Borg or the Klingons, yeah. Yeah, I think initially they used to have those wars. They did have those multiple wars. But at a certain point, I agree with you, man. They were not. Starfleet is not a military agency. I agree with you. It was purely exploration. We're just out here to explore space and see what's out there. And they devoted their resources to humanistic concerns. That's what it boiled down to. We don't want to waste our money on war. We're going to devote our resources to humanistic concerns. From that standpoint, fucking awesome. Yes, I agree. Hands down, agree. But then you run into things of, the Klingons had a point, by the way, doing this thing of, at least in Discovery, where there was like, they're trying to change us and conform us. Like, they looked at it as almost as if Starfleet was to some degree the Borg. If Starfleet was kind of like NATO, gobbling up planets or gobbling up spheres of space. And Klingons were like, we don't want to be next. Now, this is somewhat ridiculous. Starfleet is not forcing anybody to do anything. But this is what they use as a pretext. Yeah, if you push out, you may get something to push back. So, we don't know. Am I the only person who thought the Vulcan policy of shoot first and ask questions later towards Klingons until Klingons offer peace was rational? Well, I think they were looking at it as an interspecies thing. Like, say, for example, two other alien species. And you could say those species have certain traits and qualities about them that are somewhat separate and distinct from you, that you would find somewhat idiosyncratic. Now, mind, that's purely just from relative perspective. It would be like if you went to France, the French would talk in a particular way that you would find somewhat idiosyncratic. Those things are relative to one another. There is no, this is the primary form and everything else is relative to that. No, everything is relative. Meaning you're going to have some quirks that they don't have, and then they're going to have some quirks that you don't have. The Vulcans may have looked at this from a standpoint of Klingons have certain personality traits, and weakness is not necessarily to be prized as a personality traits. So, if that's their perspective, then yeah, I can see Vulcans rationalizing this thing of you show by force. If it's weakness, you're going to lose, and they're going to try to take advantage. I don't think this is insane. I could see Vulcans coming up with that kind of logic, yeah. I mean, granted, that's assuming that you're in the dominant position. Like, your ship would need to be sufficient to deal with that ends. Because think about it. You run into a Klingon. That Klingon says something harsh to you. What is your response? If your response is to back away, it's going to piss him off even more. If your response is to flip out, you may get knocked out. But in many situations, for the most part, they respected the person for speaking up. I could see that being a Vulcan policy, yeah. Hey, our ship went into Klingon space and it got destroyed. Sir, I think we should shoot them now. Oh, did you do research on them and find their culture? Nope. Let's do it. Shoot first. Didn't check if it was a miscommunication. Didn't check if it was a faux pas. Nope. Just shoot to some folks. Oh, that's a good point. That's a good point, because I think you're right. I think when she talked to what's his name in that dream state, that lucid dream, or the OBE, yeah, he said we shoot first. But I don't remember if he said, like, we researched their culture and we found that they were aggressive and blah, blah, blah. Or if he just said we shoot first because of the encounters. It might have, look, I might be giving too much thought into it. It may not have been researching the other cultures. It might have been in other encounters, these guys were aggressive, so we shoot first until otherwise. You know, I think that might have been more likely. Well, Into Darkness, Scotty describes the Federation with a literal metaphor of fascism by describing their system via faces. Persons go, from perspective, that may be true. That may be true, and it wouldn't be fascism. It would be some level of... Yeah, it would be. But so fuck what? That doesn't matter. And understand what I mean. I don't want this... He says he doesn't care about fascism. That's not what I mean. You have a situation where the entire world, for the most part, has a certain standard. So it's not like you have all of this dissenting opinion and you have all these rival spaces and all these people are being put down by this iron-fisted fascist government. That's not it at all. You have this thing where people actually agree. They grew up. They became rational human beings. Now, and what I mean by rational human beings, to some degree, you have this feeling that there's this kind of merger between state and government in a sense. People have all the things that they need. If you need something, there's some enterprise to fix it. Now, we don't necessarily know what their businesses are like, but we do know people have private businesses in the Federation or in on Earth. So, I don't think the fascist thing applies. I mean, we're talking about more like the Venus Project type thing, where it's kind of this technocratic thing. Like, so think of it this way. We need to get healthcare to each and every person, okay? How do we make sure that everyone on the planet has healthcare, or everyone in this country has healthcare? Well, that's a technical problem. That's not an ideological, that's a technical issue. If somebody is looking at that through an ideological lens, they're fucking up. That's a technological problem. You know, quantifying information, figuring out how do you get the lowest possible price on XYZ, those type of things. And if you build that towards the interests of the human being, then yeah. And look, that's assuming that you have a business involved in that. The government may say, we're taking over that process. That's us. We're going to handle the medical care. If you need to go to a doctor, you go to a doctor. Once you get rid of money, at that point, your society is just fundamentally different. You have a Venus Project. I honestly think, when I look at Star Trek and I look at the Federation and I look at them describe how their system is arranged, it looks like a Venus Project. At first contact, all of the nations became under United Earth. Right. We also know they used money until the original series, and between the next generation, it was gone. Yeah. Venus Project. They probably phased it out. So the Venus Project has this thing of, I don't know how much they talk about transition, but this automated society where, for the most part, robots do 90% of the work. Well, we can do 90% of the work now if we change our society that way, but getting robots to do like 99% of the work, it just matters. It just means you have to change your society and tilt your society in a particular way to get it done. But you can do it. Allow people to be human beings. Meaning what that person wants to do. When that person gets up in the morning and do what they want to do. Not because they have to be compelled to do it through some kind of, prodding along with, if you don't do X, Y, Z, you're not going to have your needs met. It's fucking vulgar. It's vulgar. If you have the capacity to do something where you can have robots and machines do the majority of the labor, then let them do the majority of the labor. I don't like people being fry cooks. I don't want people driving around in Ubers if they don't have to drive around in Ubers. But then you end up with an issue, a problem. Your society isn't rigged in a way that would allow people to do that. Meaning, when you have an industry that's taken over by robots, that should be something for celebration. That is not something for celebration. You have a bunch of people who lost their jobs in a society that can't deal with those people losing their jobs. Your issue is not one of supply and demand. Think of how many clothes you have. Think of how many shoes you have. It's like, I have like 20 pair of shoes. Mind you, I'm blaming my wife on this. Mrs. Thomas likes to go shopping. And because Mrs. Thomas likes to go shopping, Mrs. Thomas has tapped into my Venus and Leo and got me going along with her. So I like Converse. But do I really need 20 pairs? Like, we've gotten to the point where we're not at this thing of lack anymore. Lack is Like it's a thing of the past. If we wanted to, each and every person on this planet could be fed and housed and clothed. Poverty could be a thing of the past. At this point, poverty is a choice. We have the technology to do it. We have the technical skill to do it. At this point, it becomes a choice of we just don't do it. Star Trek gets to the point where they actually just did it. They say, hey, human beings, let's let human beings be human beings. Everybody still works. Everybody still works. Everybody still goes to school. Everybody gets these high degrees in education. Everybody, if you notice, you have all these people with like PhDs and whatnot on Star Trek, but they can go to school for as long as they want to go to school. They can study whatever they want to study. Think of all of the talent on this planet that's stuck in some kind of mire of poverty, that's stuck somewhere in some Middle Eastern country getting bombed. Think of all that potential talent that could be used in regards to science and math and technology and engineering. That stuff is wasted. That stuff is wasted. Human beings are fucking amazing in regards to the potential that those people have. And yes, human beings have an immense value. Star Trek, they look at this thing of the human as being fucking valuable, and they espouse it in their laws. I'm saying we don't do the same. We waste a lot of that talent. It depends on what you want the world to be and what you want the world to do. If you want a world that looks for this thing of advancement and progress, then yeah, you should make sure that everybody on the world has the things that they need. Otherwise, you're going to have the world that you get. Yeah, I'm bitching. Yeah, that's what we're all known for. Completely accurate representation, as every one of us. Dax Jacobson nailed it. Recognizes Jamarl. We are capable of so much more than what we have. Yes, we are. We are. Let people be what they are. It doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to eliminate all work. That's not it. Everybody's always going to have work. People, believe it or not, people like to work. It just depends on what they're working on. Dax, where do you live? I don't know anyone like that. What did Dax say? Kirk's son referred to Starfleet as the military. It used to be the military, and it depends if you're talking about the new series, like the new universe. Then yeah. But that changed. Even in the episodes, Kirk kind of made this point of saying how it switched. Those guys who used to be in the military, Starfleet switched over into this kind of discovery type thing, and many of those people couldn't necessarily relate. Eldris Ibus, pronounced his name poorly. His character, he was a human being. He was in military. They changed him over into a captain of a starship that wasn't a military vessel at that point, because Starfleet changed. So yeah, in the new series, they were. Always interested me that they say they eliminated racism, but many species they meet are referred through stereotypes. Yeah, that is funny, right? Yeah, that is funny. But I think when they say racism, I think they're not looking at that particular person as being something other than just another being, if that makes sense. It's like they may not see anything wrong with joking with Worf in a particular way. By the same token, they just consider Worf as one of them. That's what I mean. And I think that's what they mean by racism. It's not, there's no place on the planet Earth where you would find somebody who would treat somebody a particular way because of their race. There's no place on the planet Earth where that particular person of a particular race will see themselves as anything other than just another human being. That's what they mean by eliminating racism. In regards to species and stuff like that, yeah, they just look at them as people. Now, sometimes these stereotypes aren't necessarily wrong. And what I mean by that is, all beings are not going to act the exact same way. They came from different planets. Of course, they're not going to act the same way. So Klingons have a culture that's more aggressive. I don't think it's necessarily a stereotype to say Klingons are fucking insane. Can you imagine interacting with this race of beings that's always hyped up and ready for fight? That's fucking insane. Fucking insane. So I am not racist for saying that these guys are fucking insane. That, you know what I mean? It's they're going to be some, or Ferengis. Yeah, Ferengis are sniveling thieves. Is that the characterization of the show? Like, are we seeing these characters through our eyes, in essence? And I guess the answer would be yes. So from our standpoint, from our perspective, Ferengi seem like they're, The interesting part, though, the characters on the show may not necessarily see those characters in a negative light just because those characters have qualities that are different than their own. And in fact, their lens of it may be probably the best way and more accurate way to see it. This particular person is different from me. I acknowledge that difference, but in no way is that person worse. We are dynamically equal. Yeah, I think it's a more rational point of view. Uh-oh, here we go. I would love a world where people could do anything they wanted. I don't know if that's feasible. I don't do politics anymore when it comes to debate, but it's a cool idea. It's not so much that people can do whatever they want, if that makes sense. It's your... Let me ask you this. Let me say it this way. Do we have the technical skill and resources to make sure that each and every person have everything that they need on the planet? The answer is yes. The answer is just a flat fact yes. Do we have the capacity or the capability to automate the majority of the jobs on this planet? Let's say like 90% of the planet within the next 10 years. The answer is yes. Again, the answer is absolutely yes. If people tilted their perspective, then yes, it's possible. The hurdle for that is not one of technical skill, it's not one of engineering, it's not one of any of that. The hurdle to that stuff is people, human beings, how they see things. That perspective of human beings will never do X. I can never see that person doing X. This is completely unfeasible. Yeah, it's unfeasible when you think it's unfeasible. The moment that you think it's feasible, everything changes. That's perspective. That's human beings. That's how we function. All of these things are not real. These are just constructs of thought and consciousness. They're not put here by God. They can change. It may take a nuclear blast. It may take global economic collapse. It may take habitat collapse. But at some point, human beings are going to be pushed to behave a particular way, whether human beings want to or not. I'm saying focusing on doing something now and sooner rather than later is better off. That's all. And it's still like, even in those situations, human beings are still working. Like, there's no situation where you're out of work. Even if you're talking about transitioning over into this thing of 90% jobs, human beings are still working. They're still working. They're studying. They're going to school. You have people going into engineering. You have people going into science. You have people doing whatever they want in regards to the field of study that they want. And once they get out of school, they're probably going to go into that field of study. That is still work. That is still them working on things. And I would guarantee you this. The productivity in that world, that particular environment, will outpace this world in spades. When people aren't necessarily trying to do things just to make ends meet and put food on the table, I guarantee you the productivity and the things that they will come up with will be mind-blowing. Absolutely. I know Gene looked at CBS executives and CBS copyright attorneys and got inspiration for the Ferengi. Oh, that's funny. That's funny. That's funny. I love it. I was watching the History Channel, professor saying Neanderthals, it ended, the professor saying Neanderthals never had art. Art and spirituality started with humans. Art is under attack for manufacturing. Yeah, that's nice. That's interesting. Oh, that's interesting. Can you have art without the human being? Yeah, I guess the answer is no. Yeah, the answer is no. I mean, you need consciousness there to appreciate it or to even acknowledge what it is. Like, assuming you had another alien species that was standing right there beside you. And let's call him Bob. Let's say Bob looked at a piece of art and Bob says, you have shapes on the page. Bob's species doesn't have the capacity to see art in the same way that you see art. Bob just sees shapes on a page. To him, it has no meaning at all. He doesn't even understand why you would give it meaning in the first place. But you see something that's epic and lovely, and to your mind, it blows your mind. And so you put it in your room, you put it in your house, it makes you think of something else. Without the human element, you don't have art. Without it, you don't have art. You have nothing to appreciate it. You have nothing to even recognize it as being art. I would imagine art has a certain connotation, that there's something there that is getting something into somebody else. Somebody's perceiving something in there through their own cognitive lens, coming up with this understanding of what the artist is trying to convey. Well, if you don't have the consciousness there, you don't have that process. The process doesn't exist without the consciousness. Yep, it's almost as if people work harder if they're doing stuff they like. Yeah, they do. I'm still 9:30. It's almost 10 o'clock. I'm still doing fucking videos. I like Deep Space Nine showed the complete absurdity of complete privatization of society on Ferengi homeworld. Yeah, that it's they could have called Ferengi America. They could have called Ferengi America because they were privatizing every fucking thing. And people don't realize when they privatize something, they're like, I don't want the government gobbling up XYZ. It's like, but you're okay with 1% of the population gobbling up XYZ, essentially drawing a line around it and then using your tax money to have their policemen beat the shit out of you if you get out of hand. Yeah, fuck that. Imagine all the Shakespeare Mozarts we could have had if we respected art. Imagine all the Shakespeare Mozarts we had if we could have respected the human being. Meaning we're not bombing, we're not killing, we're not overthrowing governments. We're allowing people to have the things that they need. Imagine the world we could have had for that. Yeah. Yeah, Deep Space Nine was great at times. I didn't like the first few seasons, but man, when that thing got going, like when it got to season like 5 and 6, oh, it was on wings. The show was amazing. The show was absolutely amazing. Alright guys, I am going to end this and get food. I wanted to talk about Star Trek. I hadn't talked about Star Trek in a very long time. And once I saw Laura reload this video, I was like, oh, I get a chance to talk about Deep Space Nine. Yeah, man, the moral quandaries that was in that. It's, you know, Winston Churchill knowing that his son is in a location, hearing that they're going to bomb that location. It's like, do you tell your son? Do you try to get your son out of that location? If you tell your son that they're going to bomb that location and you move those people out of that location, Germany will know that you've broken their codes. And you may not get crucial information at a later date. What do you do? Your son's at risk. What do you do? What do you do? Churchill didn't want him. Churchill allowed his son to be bombed. I don't think he killed him, but he allowed his son to be bombed. He did what he had to do. He did what he had to do. Enjoyed the stream, Jamarl. Glad you did a response and found your channel. You have good content. Aw, thanks, man. Thanks, Laura. Alright, guys. I appreciate, and by the way, I appreciate your channel too, dude. I've been binging on your videos. Particularly the Doctor Who ones. I've never watched Doctor Who. Well, okay, maybe 1 or 2 episodes. But good content, man. Absolutely good content. I love it. Absolutely love it. Alright, guys. I'm going to end this here. I hope you guys enjoyed the stream. Feel free to like, write, and Patreon. I think that's everything. Thanks, guys.